Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book, How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
It's important to properly dispose of unwanted medication or sharps. MedProject offers free and convenient disposal options near you. To learn more, call 844-MED-PROJECT or visit medproject.org.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Thanksgiving, kind of. Welcome to another episode of I've Been Thinking with Elena Grace, and you're talking to me, your girl, your host, Elena Grace, and we're here for a Thanksgiving, Truthsgiving episode. I am here today on the day after Thanksgiving to tell you the real Thanksgiving story. And I'm super excited about it. But first, before we get into the turkey meat of it, that was my attempt at a joke, and I'm sorry. Before we get into it, I want to tell you guys something. I mentioned this last week in the episode with Adam, but I just want to say again, let any new listeners know, remind you, whatever it is, this month and next month, I've decided, November and December, we are giving everything that we make via Patreon subscriptions to charities here in Appalachia, specifically a charity in the community I grew up in, a community center basically is what it is. They provide lots of very necessary services to a very underserved and impoverished community, and it is a very dear subject to my heart, and my goal is to give the majority of our funds to that, to their mission this holiday season, to feed families in the community who otherwise wouldn't really have much of a holiday meal. Okay, so last year, they fed 80 families, which is just incredible in the short amount of time that they did it in. This year, they have gotten a running start. They're super ahead of where they were last year, and they hope to feed more than 80 families at least, and I want so badly to contribute to that. So the majority of our Patreon subscriptions will be going there. I'll also be donating a portion to the Jared County food pantry that was set on fire a few weeks ago, and they lost over 100 families worth of holiday meals. And that has just broken my heart. So I want to give to that as well. And then we'll also be giving some to a library in a small, underfunded, undereducated county in Tennessee. And I'm just really excited about this. And I'm really thankful for all of my Patreons. Thanksgiving episode. I'm so thankful for you guys because you're making my dream come true. And you're also helping me help other people. And that is all I can ever truly want in this life, is to help others grow and bring value to this world and to make somebody happy. So I thank you guys. All of you who are subscribed already, thank you. Please, if you're not subscribed and you can, go check out the Patreon. The link will be in the show notes to today's episode. It is in the bio on my Instagram. There's a link. There's multiple links on the website, I'veBeenThinkingPod.com. Go check out the Patreon because I want so badly to be able to give a significant amount this year. I don't want you guys to subscribe for me. Like, the content that you receive, that is just an extra for you. That's for you guys, but I want so badly to be able to give back. And that's really what I care about this time around. I don't care about paying myself for the podcast. I am giving everything for the month of November and December to those groups. So anyway, if you want to help me help other people, please go check out the Patreon. And in return, you get tons of extra content, including video content. Me being an absolute goober on video. So please go check that out, and I hope you guys subscribe and enjoy. Now, to the episode before I cry anymore. American Thanksgiving is kind of a wild ride, right? It is steeped. It's a holiday steeped in tradition and history and all kinds of stuff, but also absolutely steeped in lies and violence and negativity and a lot of things that it is very difficult to ignore once you know about the truth of it all. So, the truth of Thanksgiving is that the English settlers at Plymouth allied themselves with the Wampanoag people, whose land the English were settling on. And in 1621, they all gathered together for a 3-day fall feast in celebration of the settlers' first harvest. And that's true. It's true that the settlers and the Wampanoag gathered together and celebrated this fall festival together, right? They did. But our kindergarten teachers lied to us about the rest of it. From a young age, we're taught here in the United States, at least, that the English religious exiles began establishing civilization in the New World, quote unquote, the New World, winning over their local tribes with their overwhelming Christian kindness and hospitality, and that the native peoples taught the settlers how to grow crops like corn and how to sustain themselves in an agrarian way. There's a whole lot more to that story, though, and it's not nearly so Peanuts friendly as the truth, which sucks. Like, it's super sad because I love the Peanuts version of the first Thanksgiving. That shit is heartwarming and heartwarming. And I wish that was the truth, like, really badly. Now, the first Thanksgiving was a crowd, okay, of at least 90 Wampanoag and about 50 Englishmen. They would have dined at tables and on the ground, the Wampanoag mostly on the ground because that's how they traditionally ate, and the English at tables because that's how they traditionally ate. They ate geese and turkey, of course, and other assorted birds, and also deer. During the 3-day celebration, like I said, it was a whole 3 days. It wasn't just on Thursday. During the 3-day celebration, everybody there would have played games. They would have played marksmanship games, like, I don't know, with a bow and arrow, with their guns, that kind of thing. They would have ran foot races against each other. Just pretty simple, wholesome vibes in that moment. And I'll give it to you. Like, maybe it was. Maybe that first 3-day Thanksgiving, as we know it, feast was wholesome. Maybe it was a celebration of friendship and of community and unity. But the greater context is really what's more important, and ultimately where the controversy lay. And also, it's what dampens the wholesomeness of the holiday. Now, in reality, the version of the Thanksgiving story we've been taught is very whitewashed, a very whitewashed version of history, which tries to direct the true violence and damage out of the narrative, and certainly away from our country's veritable founders, those people who brought the society which would become the United States of America to the shores of Plymouth, to the shores of the Wampanoag land. So it's very much trying to take blame and negativity away from those people who landed on the Wampanoag shore. Now, all the things I told you, like I said, it wasn't a lie. The reality of the feast itself may have been celebratory, friendly, wholesome, all of that, but the greater context is more important. First of all, it's important to understand that the peace that brought the Wampanoag and the settlers together at the table wasn't as solid as we're usually taught. And that sucks too, because you want that to be the case. A lot of bloodshed actually took place both before and after that feast, in spite of what most of our history teachers taught us. And in fact, in honor of that bloodshed, many First Nations peoples today now observe Thanksgiving weekend as a time of remembrance rather than a celebration of thankfulness. And I've actually decided that I want to start incorporating that into my Thanksgiving traditions and start commemorating and remembering the tragedies that Thanksgiving carries with it in honor of that. Because I do, no matter where I go, no matter where I am, I'm on stolen land. And that's just the truth of the matter. And some of my ancestors were Native peoples, but that doesn't mean that that my other ancestors were less culpable, that I'm less bad for living on, this land that isn't mine. At this point, it's really difficult because it's hard to say, okay, here's this land that my home has been on for decades and decades and decades. Here, you can have it back. Like, I understand that that's very difficult, but at the same time, we have to recognize that we live on stolen land. It was not ours. It was not our ancestors to begin with. And I think that Thanksgiving, especially if you're going to continue observing it and celebrating it with your family and with those traditions of yours, I think Thanksgiving is a perfect time to also recognize that, like I said, we are on stolen land and we're celebrating something that carries a lot of death and tragedy with it. And that's difficult, and it's difficult to reconcile with the traditions that we've been taught, but I think it's very important. And that's the point of today's episode, actually, to bring that to light. So, for I just really want to celebrate it in observance. I think it's also important to remember in observance of the unfairness of how wonderful my life is, and I'm not sorry for that. But so many other people have been denied the same opportunities and denied the same wonderfulness that my life is so effortlessly, and their lives are so much harder because of the actions of some of our ancestors. And that is just so unfair, and it hurts me so badly. So again, the point of this episode is raising awareness of that fact and talking about the real truth, and hopefully inspiring some of you guys to observe and think about that and reflect on what it means, what those losses are, and how this is a holiday that celebrates thankfulness, but is literally based in the uprooting of people from their ancestral homes, their traumatization, their slaughter, and their subjugation. And we celebrate it by eating fucking turkey. Like it. Anyway, before I carry on that, because clearly I'm struggling with that, for more context on the entire thing, we're going to talk some history, okay? So the first treaty negotiated between the Wampanoag and the Plymouth settlers was in 1620 by Massasoit. This included an agreement that no one from either group could harm the other, and that weapons would always be left at home when trading with one another. So pretty reasonable, I think. So for 10 years, this did work out. English goods were traded for Wampanoag land and resources and goods. I'm sure tons of valueless goods to the English were probably traded to the Wampanoag, and that drives me crazy. Like Charlie Brown, ugh! But, shit happens. So, anyway, Massasoit passed away, and his son Wamsuta took over. So between 1630 and 1642, about 25,000 colonizers arrived from Europe. And, of course, a massive plague devastated the native population and cut it to less than half. Wonder where that came from. Big question there. Genuinely curious. Then, the Wampanoag leader, Wamsuta himself, died in 1662 under mysterious circumstances while visiting the Puritans to discuss rising tensions. The tea. Unsolved mysteries, if you will. Wamsuta's successor, Medicomet, he went on to make things interesting in the aftermath. So, in 1675, 3 natives were executed after murdering a man who had served as a translator to the settlers, which only further inflamed the distrust between the two groups. Medicomet feared that the natives would lose more land to the new, quote, settlers, which was absolutely correct. Like, he was totally right. I don't blame him. He knew what was going to happen. So, he built a coalition of various native tribes to protect themselves and their resources. Totally get it. What the fuck else would you do? What would we do? if we as where I grew up, if we as Stinking Creekers, I grew up in a place called Stinking Creek. There you go. If we as Stinking Creekers said somebody's trying to steal our land and our resources, what little resources there are, but there's a little bit, we would gather together to protect it. What the fuck else do you do? He did what was right, what anybody would do. Anyway, getting tore up again. He built a coalition of various native tribes to protect themselves. So by the fall of 1675, the coalition began to clash with the settlers, and they began to attack settlements in Connecticut and in Massachusetts. So the Narragansett tribe wanted to remain neutral between the other natives and the settlers, but they refused to give up any Wampanoags who had taken refuge in their encampment to the settlers, nor would they refuse giving shelter to people fleeing the fighting. Especially, they weren't gonna refuse women and children and the elderly who were coming from the Wampanoag who didn't want to be a part of it. So, as a result, of course, the Puritan forces, which as a phrase feels like wrong, the Puritan forces attacked the Narragansett stronghold and massacred up to 600 natives. And about 150 settlers also died. Massacred 600 natives because the Narragansett wouldn't fucking give people up and wouldn't take part in either side of the war. Puritans. This is some bullshit, okay? That's some bullshit. So, this would be the beginning of what would come to be known as King Philip's War, so called after Metacomet's English nickname. The English called him King Philip. I don't know why, because they couldn't be bothered to learn to pronounce Metacomet. Sounds about right. Sounds like a white man. The war would decimate both the native tribes and the colonies. The Wampanoag abducted settlers and would hold them ransom, and the settlers would pillage and destroy native villages. So, pretty typical. It would take decades for the settlements to recover, but the natives never truly would recover. And we know where it led. It ultimately would lead to oppression, subjugation, more massacres, and more stolen land over the years, and ultimately would lead the government to making deals that it wouldn't keep up, deals that it wouldn't hold, and putting the original owners, the original, not even owners, the original stewards of this land that we all stand on death marches to reservations where they were allowed to live. Oh, thank you so much. Great American government, honestly. Anyway, so a little bit of paranormal in the middle of this. King Philip's War is actually theorized potentially to be the beginning of the hauntings of the Bridgewater Triangle. The theory is basically that the absolute decimation of these people who were, like I said, the stewards of the land, their decimation and all of the negative energy that comes with that might have penetrated into the ground itself, cursing the geographical area, which, pretty interesting, feels like it carries to me, feels like it checks out. But other theories actually wonder if the land itself was cursed already, and whether or not that contributed to the negativity that started the war. Fair question. I don't know. I think that there was a lot of other stuff at play, but, some ancient, negative curses on the land, some ancient negativity in the geographical area. Sure, that couldn't have made it better. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I wanted to hit you with a little bit more history as we wrap up. So one article in the Historical Journal of Massachusetts actually says that the conflict might have claimed as much as 30% of the English population who had come to settle this, quote, new land, and about half of the native peoples of the New England area, which is just insane. To have this war claiming half of your people's lives, and then to also have plagues brought to your own shores by these strangers who are stealing your land. It's a lot. King Philip's War only ended when Metacomet was killed, beheaded, and dismembered, according to It Happened in Rhode Island. His head was then impaled on a spike and displayed in Plymouth for about 25 years. The Puritans were fucking dark, dudes. That's awful. You call yourselves religious Puritans, and you're slaughtering people and putting their head on a spike for 25 years. And then, here's the kicker, okay? His surviving allies were supposedly either executed or sold into slavery in the West Indies. Real pure. Real fucking pure. That's the Christ-like thing to do, boys and girls. Take it from them. Now, of course, King Philip's War was far from the only conflict between natives and colonizers. Wars raged across what would become the colonies, Virginia, Connecticut, New York, really everywhere that the white man tried to take land that didn't belong to him. And between the wars and disease, the native population really never recovered. Like I said earlier, the New World, as the settlers called it, was truthfully a millennia-old thriving society coming to an end at their very hands. If they had not ruined it. There are so many possibilities. I can't. Thus, since 1970, Native Americans and supporters have gathered at noon on Coles Hill in Plymouth on Thanksgiving Day to commemorate a National Day of Mourning. Those who honor the National Day of Mourning honor Native ancestors and the struggles of Native peoples that survive today. And it is a beautiful, in my opinion, way to celebrate spiritual connectedness as well, and to remember those who were lost in those conflicts. And it's also a form of protest against the oppression and racism that natives have suffered since the Puritans set foot on Wampanoag shores in New England and still experience to this day. And that, my loves, is the true history of Thanksgiving. I wish so badly that it were the Snoopy version, but unfortunately it's not. You can still watch the Snoopy version and love it, but unfortunately it is not accurate. And the version our history teachers taught us probably was not accurate. You're not going to hear this kind of accuracy until at least college. Maybe not even then, but probably college. It's it's so frustrating, the version of history that they give to us in schools. It's so frustrating. Anyway, I hope that you all have enjoyed this episode, and I truly do hope that you enjoyed any of your Thanksgiving celebrations that you might have had. I hope also that this brings you some new insights into the holiday and into how we celebrate. And maybe you kind of edit perhaps some of your traditions, start incorporating some new ones, like taking a time for mourning and remembrance, maybe telling the true story, maybe just incorporating that knowledge and giving thanks to the land and what it carries with it, and giving thanks that and acknowledging that we're on land that doesn't truly belong to any of us. So perhaps you can incorporate that. You can even do it, you can do your day of mourning and remembrance late if you want. It was a 3-day feast for Thanksgiving. You can have your day of remembrance on Friday instead of Thursday. It's okay. It's okay. So I hope that you all have enjoyed this episode. Like I said, I hope that it taught you something, and I hope that it gives you some new perspectives very much. I am thankful for you guys. Again, make sure you go check out the Patreon so you can be a part of that I've Been Thinking Gives Back campaign we're doing right now. Make sure you follow us on Instagram for updates at I've Been Thinking Pod. Keep up with the website, I'veBeenThinkingPod.com, for new blog posts and updates there. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you for being here. Thank you for loving me. The whole world's thanking us. We're thanking you. That is a quote from Bob's Burgers, an indecent Thanksgiving proposal episode. It's one of my favorites. Okay. I love you guys. Y'all have a good day. Y'all have a good weekend. I'll talk at you next week. Bye.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
It's important to properly dispose of unwanted medication or sharps. MedProject offers free and convenient disposal options near you. To learn more, call 844-MED-PROJECT or visit medproject.org.